All right, what's up to y'all on this beautiful, good feeling Sunday? Hope everybody had a good Sabbath yesterday. All right, so we're going to jump into talking about the eighth day, the day of faith. All right, and we're going to jump into where we're getting this eighth day from Leviticus 23:36 through 39. What is an eighth day? And we're looking at the feast days or the holy days or the days you're supposed to go to church in Leviticus 23. All right. And Leviticus 23, verse 36. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. On the eighth day shall be an holy convocation unto you, and ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly, and ye shall do no servile work therein. So if we look at a calendar, uh, the week doesn't have 8 days. All right, if we go back and look at creation, there is no 8 days. So, what is this eighth day about? Why don't we see it in creation? And we're going to look at it, right? So, what is the eighth day referring to? And right now, we're looking at the Feast of Tabernacles, which is also called Sukkot, which is also called the Feast of Ingathering or the Feast of Gathering. And those who keep it, and like any other Sabbath, is about people coming together, being gathered. And there aren't any verses in this lesson, but it speaks to that gathering that's going to happen in the end times when Jesus sends forth his angels from the Father to gather the outcast of Israel. So Israel scattered all over the world, we're going to be gathered back up. And just like it was in Exodus, that might include people who are not Israelites by blood. So aka spiritual Israelites, or those who have circumcised their hearts, right, according to his way. So that was way more wordy than it was supposed to be. All right, so let's go to Colossians 2. We're thinking about this eighth day. We're thinking about feast days. So there's something we need to keep in mind when we're looking at these things. So Colossians 2, verse 16 and 17. Let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of things to come, but the body is of Christ. So what we're focused on here is that these holy days, the new moon, the Sabbath day, which is a holy day, the new moon, which is a set apart day, all of those foreshadow something. They are a shadow of things to come. They are not to be forgotten because they remind us of something. Okay. And that's what we want to talk about today. What is the eighth day reminding us of? And once you get into it, you'll start noticing that these holy days, the Sabbaths, Passover, unleavened bread, Pentecost, first fruits, trumpets, atonement, Feast of Tabernacles, and the eighth day. The eighth day is a part of Feast of Tabernacles, but they all show us the plan. Well, they all show us the plan of salvation and how it's worked out. All right. Today we're focused on the eighth day. All right. So Matthew, verse 12. This lesson's for people who might be thinking, what are all these people talking about? Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot. Why are they go so gung ho about the eighth day? Blah, blah. All right. So Matthew 12, 2 through 8. Oh, this is addressing some people's questions about Colossians 2, what we just read. Some people use that as an excuse not to keep the days. But that discussion in Colossians is really referring to something like this. And people are judging you for how you're keeping those days. They're not judging whether or not you are keeping those days. They're judging how you are keeping those days. Uh, So let's look at it. So Matthew 12:2. But when the Pharisees saw it, they said unto him, Behold, thy disciples do that which is not lawful to do upon the Sabbath day. But he said unto them, Have ye not read what David did when he was an hungered, and they that were with him, how he entered into the house of God and did eat the showbread, which was not lawful for him to eat, neither for them which were with him, but only for the priest? Or have ye not read in the law how that on the Sabbath days the priest in the temple profane the Sabbath and are blameless? But I say unto you that in this place is one greater than the temple. But if ye had known what this meaneth, I will have mercy and not sacrifice, ye would have not condemned the guiltless. So that's an example of what Colossians 2:16-17 is talking about. You got these people who are judging these folks who have recently come into the truth. They're believing, they're keeping the law, but you got some people coming at them about how they're doing it. If you go back and look, if you move up, these are people who have left their sins behind. So we know we're not transgressing the law. We know that we're not breaking the Sabbath, right? So you can go back and look at that on your own time. I'm going to stay focused on the eighth day, but I just wanted to throw that in there. If you're looking for a way to explain Colossians 2:16-17, you can use Matthew 12:2-8. That's just one example. And let's go to 2 Peter 3:8. Because we got to make sure we understand this before we move on and start talking about these days and what they mean as far as the future goes, as far as the shadow. What do they foreshadow? 2 Peter 3:8. Well, beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. So sometimes when we're looking at the prophecies of the Bible, we're looking at different days or different times, we need to make sure we understand that sometimes a day in the script is actually 1,000 years. All right. So the perfect example of that, uh, instead of going back to Leviticus 23, we're going to jump to Revelation 26. Revelation chapter 20, verse 6. All right. So keeping in mind that the Sabbath, the new moon, the holy days, all of them foreshadow something to come. They tell us about something. We keep it as a memorial. We pass it down from generation to generation so that our families, our bloodlines don't forget, so that there's always a remnant. Blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ, and shall reign with him 1,000 years. And so this is when Jesus has come back. He's reigning on earth for 1,000 years. And we just read in 2 Peter that 1,000 years to the Lord is like one day, right? So if you're thinking about what the Sabbath represents, that seventh day, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about this 1,000 year reign. That seventh day is the 1,000 years when Christ is reigning. So it's like the Sabbath of 1,000 years. And what we're living right now is those first 6,000 years. And we can see by what's on the news that that's about to come to an end. So the Sabbath represents this 1,000 year reign of Christ, in which we get to reign with him if we've done what we're supposed to do by keeping the commandments and the faith in Christ. Now let's go back to Exodus 20 and let's look at this and let's make sure it fits. Exodus 20, verse 8. Now, point I like to make here is that the Sabbath day is just as important as thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not lie or bear false witness against thy neighbor, and thou shalt not covet. thy neighbor's stuff. Just as important as honoring thy father and thy mother. So the point here is the Sabbath day is one of the 10 commandments, which is essentially the foundation. So that might not be the right phrase, but you get the point. So Exodus 20, verse 8, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. So we got these 6,000 years here. We got these 6 days, you and I, to do anything we want to. We have 6,000 years as mankind to be what it is we're going to be, to do what it is we're going to do. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. So nobody, no living thing under your control, under your supervision, is supposed to do any work. It's supposed to be a day of total rest. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. All right, so let's go to Hebrews 4, verse 4. So the Sabbath is all about rest. In the kingdom, ain't gonna be nothing but rest and peace, and nobody working the works of the flesh. Hebrews 4. For he spake, Hebrews 4, verse 4, then verse 9, then verse 11. For he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and God rested, and God did rest the seventh day from all his works. Read that again. For he spake in a certain place of the seventh day on this wise, and God did rest the seventh day from all his works, like we just read. There remaineth therefore a rest to the people of God. This is what we're supposed to know. There remaineth a rest. There's something still out there. Verse 11, let us labor therefore to enter into that rest. So that's what we're supposed to be doing now for these 6 days, these 6,000 years. While you are breathing during these 6,000 years, we're supposed to be laboring therefore to enter into that rest with good works, right? Faith without works. Lest any man fall after the same example. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. He also has ceased from his own works as God did from his. All right, so we stop focusing on the deeds of our flesh, the lust, the things that we want, uh, that separate us from God. Our focus is the kingdom. Our focus is being with the Father. The focus is having that peace, and not the temporary peace that comes with the works of the flesh, the fleeting, vain peace or satisfaction, I should say. All right, so the Sabbath represents or is that rest, and it represents the weekly rest, and it represents that ultimate rest that we are trying to enter into, where Christ is reigning, and we are reigning with him. So let's go to Leviticus 10:10. All right, Leviticus 10:10. All right. And that ye may put difference between holy and unholy. Excuse me. And that ye may put difference between holy and unholy, and between unclean and clean. So that is a point of emphasis to us, for us. We're supposed to put a difference. That's the whole point of us giving us his law, giving us his way of living, is so that we would be able to discern, be able to know the difference between what is holy and unholy, what is unclean and clean, and that ye may teach the children of Israel all the statutes which the Lord hath spoken unto them by the hand of Moses. Right? So he wants us to know the difference and apply it and pass it down. Let's look at Ezekiel 44, and we'll get to what this has to do with the eighth day in just a second. Ezekiel 44:23. And they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and profane, and cause them to discern between the clean and unclean. So this is what he wants. This is what he wants from his pastors. This is what he wants from his priests. This is what he wants from a bishop. This is what he wants from an elder. This is what he wants from a brother or sister. We need to teach each other. We need to know, first of all, the difference between holy and profane, the clean and unclean. And then we need to teach so they can discern between the holy and profane and the unclean and the clean. Okay. So, but God is not going to put us in the lake of fire for uncleanness, is he? The Old Testament stuff. Let's look at Galatians 5:19 and through 21. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness. Highlight. Now the works of the flesh are manifest, which are these: adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lasciviousness, idolatry, witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulations, wrath, strife, seditions, heresies, envyings, murders, drunkenness, revelings, and such like, of the which I tell you before, as I have told you in times past, that they which do such things, like practice uncleanness, shall not inherit the kingdom of God, just like the people who practice witchcraft, or adultery, or lasciviousness, or wrath. So knowing the difference between clean and unclean is just as important as not killing somebody or out here fornicating or cheating or adultery. Okay. So that's important. And uncleanness, it's very important. Cleanness, holiness, purity, that's important to the Father. That's important to the Elohim. All right. Let's go to Exodus 22:29 and look at some examples of that. Exodus 22:29. See what the Father has to say about some clean and unclean things, and let's see if we see a pattern. Okay, Exodus 22, verse 29 through 30, I guess. All right, so Exodus 22, verse 29 through 30. Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits and of thy liquors. The firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. People always talk about not giving tithes, but there is a consistent theme throughout the whole Bible about giving off top from your increase. Exodus 22:30. Likewise shalt thou do with thine oxen and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam, and on the eighth day thou shalt give it me. So 7 days under the care of the mother, and then on the eighth day it's given to the Elohim. 7 days with its mom, natural mother, and then on that eighth day, it's given to the spiritual father, right? Let's look at it again. So you got that 7 and you got that eighth, right? Let's go to Leviticus 8. Leviticus 8, 5 through 9. And this is talking about, as you can see, the consecration of Aaron and his sons. So them being set apart for their special purpose, just like you and I have been set apart for a special purpose, ultimately to be priests and kings of the Most High. That's what we're a nation of, if you're an Israelite. All right, so let's go to Leviticus 8, 5 through 9. And Moses said unto the congregation, this is the thing which the Lord commanded to be done. And Moses brought Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. And he put upon him the coat, and girded him with the girdle, and clothed him with the robe, and put the ephod upon him, and he girded him with the curious girdle of the ephod, and bound it unto him therewith. All right, so this is them getting their status, getting their position, and they have to go through a cleansing, just like we have to go through a purifying, right? And he put the breastplate, well, like we have to purify ourselves and get ourselves right until we die or until he comes back. Verse 8, and he put the breastplate upon him. Also, he put in the breastplate the Urim and the Thummim. And he put the a mitre upon his head. And let me read that again. And he put the mitre upon his head. Also upon the mitre, even upon his forefront, did he put the golden plate, the holy crown, as the Lord commanded Moses. So again, this is someone being given their position. They're going through this process, but they had to be washed, and they were given new clothing for their position. It's like our white robes and the crowns that are going to be given to us. Let's skip down to 33 through 36. So this is all after all that's been done, and this is what they're supposed to do next. And ye shall not go out of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation in 7 days. And let me read that again. And ye shall not go out of the door of the tabernacle of the congregation in 7 days, until the days of your consecration be at an end. So there's 7 days of being set apart here for this set of people, Aaron and his sons. For 7 days shall he consecrate you. What happens on this 8th day? Let's keep reading. Well, let's see, it's at the end of it. As he had done this day, so the Lord hath commanded to do, to make an atonement for you. Okay, so there's an atonement that happens here. Therefore shall ye abide at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation day and night 7 days, and keep the charge of the Lord, that ye die not, for so I am commanded. All right, so just like Aaron and his sons in this life, we are supposed to live set apart. We are supposed to avoid those unclean, profane, unholy things. We are supposed to live sanctified, consecrated through the blood of Christ, that atonement, right? And that's all of mankind. For how long? We know we got the 6 days, and we know Satan is bound for that 1,000 years. But we also know at the end of that 1,000 years, people are testing. So the whole the whole set of people who are going to be saved, the total amount of people who are going to be saved, isn't really finalized until the end of that 1,000 years, when the people that are alive during that time are tested during the Gog and Magog, or right before Gog and Magog, right? So you got 7 years of mankind basically being sifted. Some are being set apart to this, some are being set apart to that, kingdom or the lake of fire. And let's look at it. Let's go to verse 9. Verse 9. So this is the same process of Aaron with Aaron and his sons. And it came to pass on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. And he said unto Aaron, take thee a young calf for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering, without blemish, and offer them before the Lord. And unto the children of Israel thou shalt speak, saying, take ye a kid of the goats for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both of the first year, without blemish, for a burnt offering. So basically, I'm not going to read this whole chapter, but basically what you're going to see is there's a whole lot of fire, a whole lot of death There's a whole lot of um, burning of sacrifices to get them right with God. And so the point of that is, we're going to skip down. Actually, I'm going to keep reading through that. Let me start from the top. I'm going to go 1 through 6, I believe. Okay. So this is the whole purpose of being cleansed. This is why he needs us to be pure. This is why he needs us to be on that holy side, on that clean side, and not that unclean, profane side. And it came to pass on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. And he said unto Aaron, take thee a young calf for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering, without blemish, and offer them before the Lord. And unto the children of Israel thou shalt speak, saying, take ye a kid of the goats for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both of the first year, without blemish, for a burnt offering. Also a bullock and a ram for peace offerings to sacrifice before the Lord, and a meat offering mingled with oil. For today the Lord will appear unto you. That's what we're getting. That's what we're waiting for. That's what we want. We want to be in the presence of the Lord. We want the Lord to find us worthy enough of dwelling with us. Verse 5, and they brought that which Moses commanded before the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the congregation drew near and stood before the Lord. And Moses said, this is the thing which the Lord commanded that ye should do, and the glory of the Lord shall appear unto you. So there's something to be done. So that faith without works, doesn't exist. There's gotta be something done. You have to get yourself right. You got to get yourself ready as best you can through the Spirit, because that's who you're following, the Spirit of Christ. You got to get yourself right according to that in order for it to lead you to the Father like it's trying to do. Let's go to Leviticus 15, verse 25. We can't just come to him any way we want to. Leviticus 25, I'm sorry, Leviticus 15, verse 25. Okay. Now, this is one of the cleanliness laws. This is referring to a woman's menses. And if a woman have an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, because they had to separate themselves when they were going through it, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. Every bed whereon she lieth all the days of her issue shall be unto her as the bed of her separation, and whatsoever she sitteth upon shall be unclean, as uncleanness of her separation. So whenever there's uncleanness, there's got to be a separation, right? You can't be among the others. You can't be among God. God's, especially if God's dwelling with them, because you're unclean and you could taint other people. And he's not about uncleanness or unholiness. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days. So after the blood is gone and she's clean, she's supposed to number 7 days. And after that, she shall be clean. So what happens on that 8th day? And on the 8th day, she shall take unto her 2 turtles or 2 young pigeons and bring them unto the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So on that 8th day, she gets to go to the tabernacle of the congregation. She couldn't before, but now she gets to approach. And the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for her before the Lord for the issue of her uncleanness. So the point here is there again, we're seeing that atonement. So if you don't accept the blood of Christ as the atonement for your sin, then you don't get to approach. You don't get to dwell with. He's not going to dwell with you. And again, we see all this burning going on. Burn offering, burning, burning, atonement, because the person was unclean. Verse 31. Thus shall ye separate the children of Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness, when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. Excuse me. This is the law of him that hath an issue, and of him whose seed goeth from him, and is defiled therewith. So before we got into the menses section, uh, the Lord was telling us how to deal with men who had men who were unclean, and down there in the reproductive area, there, the genitalia area. So when you have sex or when you emit something, then you're unclean. All right. But this specifically dealt with an eighth day of cleansing, an eighth day of cleansing or presentation, whatever you want to call it, an eight-day process. All right. So that was the focus there. And let's go to all right, let's go to Leviticus 14, 1 through 11. All right. So this is the law of cleansing a leper. And the point of all this is going to kick in about two or three scripts, and we really don't have that much more after that. All right, so Leviticus 14, 1 through 11. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This shall be the law of the leper in the day of his cleansing. He shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall go forth out of the camp. So again, there's that separation. And the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper. Then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be clean 2 birds alive and clean, and cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it in the cedar wood, and the scarlet, and the hyssop, and shall dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the open field. And he that is to be cleansed shall wash his clothes and shave off all his hair, and wash himself in water that he may be clean. And after that he shall come into the camp, and shall tarry abroad out of his tent 7 days. All right, so you have a first day of cleaning, and then you have the cleaning on the that we're about to go into. All right, so that is the first day, and he was cleaned, cleansed, and allowed to come out of his tent and come into the camp for 7 days. And let's see what happened on the 7th day. But it shall be on the 7th day that he shall shave up all his hair off of his head, and his beard, and his eyebrows, even all his hair, he shall shave off, and he shall wash his clothes. Also, he shall wash his flesh in water, and shall be clean. So, on that first day, outside of the camp, he had to be clean. Once in the camp, on the 7th day, he had to be cleaned. And on the 8th day, let's see what happens. And on the 8th day, he shall take 2 he lambs without blemish, and 1 ewe lamb of the first year without blemish, and 3/10 deals of fine flour for a meat offering mingled with oil, and 1 log of oil. And the priest that maketh him clean shall present the man that is made clean, that is to be made clean, and those things before the Lord at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. So that's what it's about, being presented to the Lord. Just like Aaron and his sons were presented after going through their process, them being atoned for and cleansed and sacrificed for. It's the same thing for a leper, same thing for a menstruous woman, It's the same concept. 7 days or 6 days of getting right, the seventh day of getting right, and the eighth day of presentation. The seventh day of rest, I should say. Uh, Remember that Gog and Magog and that final test in that seventh day happens at the end of the 1,000 years when Satan is loosed. So make sure you make that clear. All right. So Leviticus 12, 2 through 3. Looking at the eighth day. 2 through 3. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a woman have conceived seed and born a man child, then she shall be unclean 7 days. According to the days of her separation from her infirmity shall she be unclean. And in the eighth day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. So on that eighth day is when men are supposed to be circumcised, right? If you're keeping that tradition. All right, so Jeremiah 4:4. What does this circumcision represent? What is it really about? Circumcise yourself. So, like this, referring to the eighth day now. This is an eighth day ritual or ceremony. Circumcise yourselves to the Lord, and take away the foreskins of your heart. So again, this is what we're supposed to be doing through our lives, circumcising ourselves, taking away the foreskins of our heart, getting us ready for what? For the presence of the Lord, to dwell with the Lord. Ye men of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem, lest my fury come forth like fire and burn, that none can quench it because of your evil doings. So again, we got this concept of an eighth day. And if you haven't circumcised yourself or purified yourself, you get burnt up, right? I hope I'm making a connection. So if we're not circumcised in heart, we will burn with the foreskin, the waste, the old man. And we're going to revisit that idea in just a second, but let's go to Numbers 31. Verse 31, verses 7 through 10. All right, so this was after they went to war. They got some captives from the Midianites, and God is going to tell them what to do with some of the stuff they have, right? Excuse me. And they warred against the Midianites as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all the males. And they slew the kings of Midian, beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi and Rakem and Zur and Hur and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also, the sons of Beor, they slew with the sword. And the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives, and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle, and all their flocks, and all their goods. And they burnt all their cities wherein they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire. So this is Jesus's people. This is God's people. It's Elohim's people taking over a place by setting it on fire. Just want to keep that clear. All right. And they took all the spoil and all the prey, both of men and of beast, and they brought the captives and the prey and the spoil unto Moses and Eleazar the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Israel, unto the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan near Jericho. And Moses and Eleazar the priests and all the princes of the congregation went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moses was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. We're supposed to stop at 10. Let me go to verse 17. Now therefore kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. So They took these captives, they took some spoil, they had these things, and Moses is telling them what God told him to tell them to do with these things, right? So let me read that again. Now, therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by lying with him. But all the women children that have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. And do ye abide without the camp 7 days. Whosoever hath killed any person, and whosoever hath touched any slain, purify both yourselves and your captives on the third day and on the seventh day. So here we go, that concept of purifying yourself for 7 days. And purify all your raiment, and all that is made of skins, and all work of goat's hair, and all things made of wood. And then keep in mind, they have to do this outside of the camp, without the camp. Verse 21. And Eleazar the priest said unto the men of war which went to the battle, this is the ordinance of the law which the Lord commanded Moses. Only the gold and the silver, the brass, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that may abide the fire, ye shall make it go through the fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of separation, and all that abideth not the fire, ye shall make go through the water. So everything had to be clean. And if it was able to go through the fire, like not a person or an animal or something like that, it had to go through the fire. But everything had to be washed clean. Everything had to be cleansed. Verse 24, and ye shall wash your clothes on the seventh day, and ye shall be clean. And afterward, what's after the seventh day? The eighth day. And afterward ye shall come into the camp. So that's when you get to dwell with him and he with you. The eighth day. That 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 day after the Sabbath. That day after the 7,000 years, or the 1,000-year reign. What's after the 1,000-year reign? We're gonna look at it. Let's go to Isaiah 24:5. We'll start in verse 4. The earth mourneth and fadeth away. The world languisheth and fadeth away. Haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. So the earth is defiled right now. Is the earth pure and clean and holy? No. So based off of what we read, what has to be done to the earth? It has to be cleansed. It has to be purified. Let's look at Ezekiel 22:26. Okay, so why is the earth so defiled? Why is the earth so filthy? Her priests have violated my law. Pastors, bishops, cardinals, whatever you want to call them. Her priests have violated my law and have profaned my holy things. They have put no difference between the holy and profane. How many people learn about the difference between clean and unclean, holy and profane, or unholy and holy in church, in Sunday church? Not too many. Neither have they showed difference between the clean and the unclean, or the unclean and the clean, and have hid their eyes from my Sabbaths, and I am profaned among them. So when we talk about why the earth is defiled, no one's teaching the difference between holy and unholy. No one's teaching how to be sanctified. And based off of what we're reading, how does God feel about that? Let's go to Zephaniah 3:8. It doesn't look right. Zephaniah 3:8. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger. For all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. So we just read how the earth is defiled, and we've been reading about how nothing defiled or impure, unclean, or unholy can be in the same place as God. They don't go together. So what he's telling us here is he don't like that at all. And in his anger, he's going to set the world on fire because we're not giving him his due. It's like a defiled woman coming back home to her husband, or a defiled man coming back home to his wife. I don't want that. You don't want that. Elohim don't want that. Revelation 8. So we're seeing this fire. We're seeing this burning. Revelation 8, 7. Now we're talking about the end times, right? So this is the first angel. This is the first trumpet. And let's see what happens in that first trumpet. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of the trees was burnt up, and all the green grass was burnt up. So a third part of the trees on earth burnt up, and all the green grass burnt up. Why? Because the earth is defiled because of sin, and because nobody is teaching the difference between clean and unclean, holy and unholy, how to be sanctified, how to discern. Of course, he has a remnant who are, but most of the world is not. Let's go to Matthew 13. So it's got to be purified. Matthew 13, 38 through 43. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sold them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. So that's about where we're at, right? And therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire. So shall it be in the end of this world. I'm sorry. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this world. The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend and them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. So, all things that offend. Is he pleased with uncleanness? Is he pleased with unholiness? Is he pleased with filth? There's a verse somewhere in the Old Testament where he says people need to go outside the camp to use the restroom, I think, or he said he was going to meet with somebody outside the camp, lest he walk through the camp and see the waste and he get upset. So he doesn't like uncleanness at all. He does not like filth at all. And the way to clean it up is he burns it. Let's go to Leviticus 23:39. We're talking about the tares, right? Tares being And those are those of us who are not producing fruit. We don't have the fruits of the Spirit. We're engaged in the works of the flesh. Verse 39. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's like 7 places after this, but they're all quick. All right. Also, in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye have gathered in the fruits of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day shall be a Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. So, on this 8th-day feast, the fruit were gathered in, not the tares, not the naked branches, but the fruitful branches were gathered in, because this is a harvest and you want to keep what it is good and nourishing and able to be used, right? It's not going to hurt people, it's going to nourish people. So we don't want thorns and thistles and tares, we want fruit. So we're talking about a gathering here, right? And you have to have fruit if you want to be gathered. Gathered in the right pile, I should say. Everyone's going to get gathered. So let's go back to Isaiah 24. Isaiah 4. We're going to look at verse 6 this time. We're going to start at verse 5. The earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore hath the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burned, and few men left. So again, we are being purified right now. The earth is getting ready to be super purified, but we are going through a purification process. Actually, we're going through a period of time where we're allowed to purify ourselves and get ourselves right as individuals. And then he's going to purify the earth. And anyone who hasn't purified themselves is going to get burnt up, whether alive or dead. But you're not going to make it to the presence, to the dwelling, the Most High. Let's keep looking at it. Just bear with me. Leviticus 25:22. All right, so this is talking about what to do with the land, right? This is just something to think about. And ye shall sow the 8th year and eat yet of old fruit until the 9th year, until her fruits come in, ye shall eat of the old store. Let me start back up here. There we go. All right. 25 and 20. And if ye shall say, what shall we eat the 7th year? Behold, we shall not sow nor gather in our increase. Then I will command my blessing upon you in the 6th year, and it shall bring forth fruit for 3 years. All right. So again, right here, we got 6 years of working, right? On that 6th year, he's given them enough to get them through what, that 6th year, the 7th year, and the 8th year. Because they're not going to do anything in the 7th year. They eat what it is they eat year by year. So that's the 6th year. They're not going to do anything on the 7th year except for eat what the extra stuff he gave them in the 6th year. In the 8th year, the same thing. So, and ye shall sow the 8th year and eat yet of old fruit until the 9th year. Until her fruits come in, ye shall eat of the old store. So whatever they did or did not do through those first 6 years is what they had to live with for the 7th and 8th year, which is just like us. If we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing now as individuals, then there ain't gonna be nothing for us on that 7th year, that real Sabbath, that 1,000-year reign, or that 8th day. And I don't want to tell you what the 8th day is about yet. But we're not going to have it. There's not going to be anything there for us when it's come to dwell and be in the presence of the Most High, because we didn't do what we're supposed to do while we had the time. And as far as mankind goes, we've had this whole, 6,000 years to do what it is we're going to do, to get what it is we're going to get. But according to what we're reading, we haven't been doing that right as a whole. So we've got to be burnt up. There ain't going to be nothing for the world, no seventh and eighth years, except for fire, purification, eternal purification. There is no end. Let's go to 2 Timothy 2. 19 through 26. 19 through 26. Nevertheless, the foundation of God standeth sure, having this seal: the Lord knoweth them that are his. And let every one that nameth the name of Christ depart from iniquity. So we should know that whatever it is we're reading in the Bible, if we think or someone tells us that it's telling us it's okay to break one of the commandments or it's okay to sin, you got to know that that is not the case at all. Yes, God cares. Yes, Jesus cares. If you sin, commit iniquity, practice it, whatever, he cares because he don't like it. And it's not good for us and it's not good for our relationship with him. But in a great house, there are not only vessels of gold and of silver, but also of wood and of earth, and some to honor and some to dishonor. If a man therefore purge himself from these, so something you're supposed to be doing, working out your own salvation, right? He shall be a vessel unto honor, sanctified, set apart, and meet for the master's use, and prepared unto every good work. Flee also youthful lust, but follow righteousness, faith, charity, peace with them that call on the Lord out of a pure heart. So we got the fruits of the Spirit there, right? But foolish and unlearned questions avoid, knowing that they do gender strifes. And the servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle unto all men, apt to teach, patient in meekness, instructing those that oppose themselves, if God peradventure will give them repentance to the acknowledging of the truth, so they don't burn. So we are all vessels. So we have to ask ourselves, are we fit for use? Are we clean? Are we honorable? Or are we dirty and we like staying in the dirty sink with all the other dirty dishes? Or do we want to get out of that, get cleaned up, and be useful to somebody, be useful to the Most High? Because what happens to the people that aren't useful? The tares get burned up, they get gathered for the fire. Let's go to Romans 6. Romans 6, verse 4. Therefore we are buried, therefore we are therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised up from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in the newness of life. Right? So just like we read in Jeremiah 4 about that circumcised heart, circumcised on the inside, having that foreskin thrown away, tossed behind us. Keep reading. For if we have been planted together in the likeness of his death, we shall also be in the likeness of his resurrection, knowing this, that our old man is crucified with him, that the body of sin might be destroyed, that henceforth we should not serve sin. For he that is dead is freed from sin, and sin is the transgression of the law. 1 John 3:4, sin is the transgression of the law, so we do not want to be transgressing the law. The earth is defiled because people have transgressed the law. So we don't want to be in that number with those who are destroying the earth. There's a verse in Revelations talking about those that destroy the earth are going to be killed. And you're defiling the earth. You're destroying the earth if you're defiling it. Basically, we can't keep sinning. We gotta stop. We gotta repent. Gotta ask. We gotta confess it. We gotta ask for forgiveness and accept the blood of Christ has washed that away. Let's go to this. We got three places. 2 Peter 3. Peter 3, verse 7 through 14. But the heavens and the earth, which are now by the same word, are kept in store, reserved unto fire against the day of judgment and perdition of ungodly men. This is who we don't want to be. The heavens and the earth are reserved unto fire. But beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years as one day. The Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some men count slackness, but is longsuffering to usward, not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. Why? What do we have to look forward to? What does he have in store for us? What is the promise? What's being prepared for us? Or what has been prepared for us since the beginning of the world, since the foundation of the world? Well, the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, if you're not paying attention, in the which the heavens shall pass away with a great noise, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. The earth also and the works that are therein shall be burned up. So you got earthly works, you got kingdom works. Seeing then that these things shall be dissolved, what manner of persons ought ye to be in all holy conversation and godliness, looking for and hasting to unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat? Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. So that's what it is we're looking for. And that's why it's so important that we know the difference between clean and unclean. That's why it's so important that we focus on purifying ourselves and stepping away from those unclean, unholy things to the best of our ability, and away from sin and away from iniquity, even in our thoughts as much as we can. We have to purify ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to get burnt up. So there has to be a cleansing, an atoning, then a presentation. Verse 14. Wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, be diligent that ye may be found of him in peace, without spot, and blameless. Let me read those last two verses again. Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. Wherefore, beloved, seeing that ye look for such things, be diligent that ye may be found of him in peace, without spot, and blameless. Those peace offerings, or sacrifice offerings, all that atonement through the blood of Christ. That's what that's pointing us to, through the blood of Christ. Just like the Sabbath is pointing us to the 1,000-year reign, just like the eighth day is pointing us to the new heavens and the new earth. 2 Chronicles 29, verses 17 through 19. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify. So that's the new moon, right? The new moon, you know it's there, but you can't see it. But you know it's there. Kind of like the kingdom, kind of like the eighth day. It's not on the calendar, but you see it because you're told about it, right? Faith came by hearing. Where are we at? 17 through 19. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify, and on the eighth day of the month as the beginning of the month, right? We're talking about beginnings, we're talking about newness. It's the beginning of the month, the beginning of the count. Right? We're starting over, or refreshing. Read that again. All right, sorry. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month came they to the porch of the Lord. So they sanctified the house of the Lord in 8 days. And in the 16th day of the first month, they made an end. So the key point here is they sanctified the house of the Lord in 8 days. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify. And on the 8th day of the month, that's when they came to the Lord. That's when there was a coming together. That's the point. That 8th day represents that coming together. Right? In verse 18. Then they went in to Hezekiah the king and said, We have cleansed all the house of the Lord, and the altar of burnt offering, with all the vessels thereof. Aren't you a vessel? And the showbread table, and with all the vessels thereof. Moreover, all the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away in his transgression have we prepared and sanctified, and behold, they are before the altar of the Lord, just like we're going to get presented by our high priest Christ. After he's cleaned us up, purified us, helped us do that through his spirit, we become vessels totally honorable, 100% honorable to be presented, to be set before the Lord. Those who have not gone through that process don't get to be presented to the Lord in that way. Get gathered unto the fire, right? All right, and let's go to our last place, Revelation 21, 1 through 5, what it's really all about. Do all that. All right. And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. Why? Because they were defiled. And I saw John, and I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So they're coming together, right? And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away. And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. Behold, I make all things new. That's what the 8th day is about. That's what we're looking forward to. That's what we're getting ourselves ready for through the Spirit. Hope that was helpful to somebody. In Jesus' name, amen.